Well, I will dive right in, but we are going to save some room for questions. So please start thinking of all of those questions you've always wanted to ask the super agent, Ariel Emanuel. So what
Can we actually, before we
yeah.
start, so I want to ask the question of the host here. So when are you going to call it like web mobile 3.0, or when is mobile into the conversation? But we can address that later by the
Maybe
host.
we already are in Web 3.0, and maybe Web 3.0 is all about content.
Yes.
What is the new business of entertainment?
Well, I think there's multiple business of entertainment. There's going to be the traditional level of entertainment. So there's going to be movies, there's going to be TV, there's going to be reality TV, there's going to be books, there's going to be music, there's going to be sports and news. Over, I think, a period of when devices and what we now would in Hollywood define as television is internet enabled, you will see a migration of people creating their own content. Some people will go the traditional route where they'll go to the movie studios, they'll put their movies together. Some people will go direct and use Facebook or use some system by which to migrate their audience into financing their program. And some people will, on the television side, go direct, and authors will go direct. My job over the next, from now for the next 4 years, is to learn how to adapt my clients' voices and utilize the plethora of distribution to monetize their businesses.
You come from a traditional entertainment background. How have you seen that change? When you look at your clients, what is your role now as a talent agent?
Well, I mean, I put on I just sold it on the way up. I just sold a television show to Stars, right? I am in the middle of, I think they're in the audience here. We're in the middle of making deals with this company, Open Sky, because a bunch of our, whether they be chefs, whether they be authors, I think can go direct with their voices to their audience and sell product through that. There's no one answer anymore, right? So I can do a traditional movie, and I'm putting a movie together right now with, Marty Scorsese, and I'm doing a television show with Marty Scorsese. But XY Lady Gaga is going to be selling a product in Polaroid, and how we put the OS system in the camera with her next and how we deal with that conversation and what the value of that for her is a whole different ball of wax, which I have to understand, bring the right people in, and then figure out what the value proposition is to her and to the product. Here's what I believe. You had Google, which was search. You then had Facebook with a gathering of people. And now you have influencers. And how I migrate that conversation and monetize that conversation for my artists in a distribution system which is only becoming more vast is where we are beginning to adapt the agency. We will be traditional, but we also, as the process evolves, we will kind of adapt to that. And we're building manpower and processes to kind of deal with that right now.
So how do you monetize your clients' talent in this digital world?
Well, one is I just talked about Open Sky. Another is we made an investment in a social gaming company called Grab.
But actually, why don't you explain what Open Sky is? Because it's a pretty interesting.
It's a blogging system that authors, chefs, entertainers can discuss products that they're involved with, and through their products and through their blogging, sales happen, and they get economic benefit because of it, depending on where they sit in the spectrum and what conversations are. So they become, for lack of a better, they become an affiliate.
So from what I understand...
You will not get anything from the company.
From what I understand, if you're Lady Gaga, if you're Rachel Ray, you decide that you're going to recommend a blender, you get 50% of the profit from selling this.
I'm not sure all of it's 50% of profit, but yes, you do get profit from it.
Do you think that right now talent, various types of talent, are adequately monetizing their fame?
The music business has been doing this for a while, so I believe they're doing it. They probably could be doing it better, right? It hasn't yet affected the movie and television business as much. In the digital world, that will start to happen sooner rather than later as televisions as we know it become internet-enabled. I mean, if the question I have asked myself is, would I create we represent Hasbro, would I have created the channel for Hasbro now, in 2 years from now? The answer probably would have been a no. I'm in the middle of a deal with the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter. Do I create a channel? Do I just do programming? Or do I do a whole different form of distribution for their product? Probably in the short term and in the long term, they're going to have product on the television. They have things over the web. So I think there's a multiple level of platforms that we have to address to monetize content. And it depends on the client. Seth MacFarlane, who created Family Guy, American Dad, Cleveland, he'll more than likely be creating several other TV shows in the animation. I'm not sure if I have to go the traditional route. If I announce that he has a new animated show, and I put it on Facebook or I put it wherever, I think I probably could finance that. How I do that and when I do that is going to be the question. Do I create a Seth MacFarlane app? I'm not sure yet, right? When's the right time for that? We're building a place where we have advertisers, right? And we have a digital agency, an advertising agency, Red. And how we begin this conversation and when we begin this conversation for certain clients is what we're analyzing every day.
But you are, on a lot of occasions, cutting the traditional media conglomerates out of the equation. You're going directly to consumers.
In the movie business, let me just say it this way, maybe because we'll go to the traditional business. In the movie business, for a $150 million movie, I have to go to Warner Brothers. If I had certain stars in the movie and certain people involved in the movie, and I was doing the movie for $25 million, I wouldn't have to go to the traditional route. Same thing's true with digital. So each client's different, each situation's different. And what the objective of the client is, and if I can find an output deal that pays for the content that enables them to kind of get their voice out and make a living doing it. And, that's just now the new job that I have to confront. One of the reasons we did the merger was because I wanted to be in the book business and what's going to be happening in the publishing area, in ebooks. And we see it happening now. We're in the music business. We have the second largest music business. So, and we have the largest literary agency. How we have that conversation of what tasks we perform for those authors is the issue. And going into the future, I don't have the answer right now. Is it a platform? Does each one of them have their own app? How do we migrate their audiences to sell their books? I definitely don't think I have to go to Knopf. I don't think I have to go to Simon & Schuster for the book business. So I think that's going to be a very contentious conversation. They might just get hardcover, but I don't know yet.
You've always negotiated against the movie studios, the big media conglomerates. How has the conflict with those traditional media companies changed now that we have all these other options?
When I was doing Seth MacFarlane's last deal, and it was a very expensive deal for Fox, they only got his TV business, and they were paying hundreds of millions of dollars for his TV business. They did not get his digital rights. They did not get his movie rights. It was a 2-year unpleasant conversation. It's only going to get worse now.
So what now?
I'm glad everybody's laughing. They're not sitting in my seat.
But they didn't get any of the other rights.
No, they didn't. But, I had leverage there. They needed it. And I knew they needed it. So, it's how much pain can I endure and they endure. So I can endure a lot of pain.
In this conflict with the studios, the traditional media companies, who has the control?
I think into the future, I would rather sit in my seat compared to their seat. Okay? If distribution was infinite, as George Gilder says, and there's going to be 10,000 channels or apps or however you want to define it here, right? And in 1995, there was 4 networks. in 2010, going in 2011, I don't know how many cable channels, I don't know how many networks there are, right? Content distribution was the commodity in 95. In 2010, content's the asset. I believe I sit in the area where content creators are the asset. So as time progresses and distribution expands, I'm going to be one tough motherfucker. Now, the big question for everybody in this audience is the following. How do content creators and technology coexist? Because I believe I need you, and I believe you haven't realized you need me. Because there's going to be a lot of distribution. And if you want to differentiate, not all, but if you want to differentiate your distribution, you're going to need content. And we can all discuss what the definition of content is, right? My two sons showing me two dogs on a couch doing things I won't talk about here, for them is content, okay? What I believe is content is a different conversation, okay? But I'm not here to say what is good content and what is bad content. Content's content, right? So if you guys don't think that content needs to be paid for and content needs to be protected, and it's the biggest, one of the big assets coming out of intellectual property coming out of this country, whether it be technology, whether it be patents, whether it be pharmaceuticals, or whether it be entertainment, we're going to have a very big problem.
Okay,
because you need it and I need it.
What do you define the relationship that you see now between Silicon Valley and Hollywood, Northern California, Southern California?
It actually is getting closer.
You say that with an air of surprise.
Well, no. Because, I mean, I can't believe you want me up, you know, I can barely turn on the computer. No, but, you know, it's definitely getting closer because I think people realize that we're moving to a new phase where it's influencers and that there's a lot of distribution and that depending on how you define content, content matters. And so it's going to have to get closer. We're doing a program with LinkedIn right now with one of our big authors. I would have never thought that they would need that, except I made the trip up here. I met with the CEO of LinkedIn. He said something that he wants. We're coming up with 3 or 4 programs for him as it relates to content, which I would have never thought about unless I had the conversation of his needs. Knowing our authors and our journalists and our business writers, it was an easy conversation to say, you know, here's what I think links up. We put a team together, and we're moving down the path with them. Well, that is content, right? And I think that's important for them. It's important for our clients because it's a different distribution model. And we're going to be exposed, I think, now to 76 million users that we would have never been exposed to for our writer clients.
Now, so much of the distribution has shifted up to Silicon Valley. There are a dozen different companies, you know, from...
You know, the traditional business is not going away so quickly. Okay.
But in terms of this new distribution, you meet with Google, you meet with Microsoft, you meet with all of these technology companies all the time, from what I understand. What do you think Silicon Valley's biggest misperception is about your business?
They think that, and I don't want to speak for Google or any, you know, that they need less people behind the scenes kind of manufacturing, I think. I mean, I don't want to speak for them. You can ask, you know, Eric, and that the less people that maybe touch something, it's more valuable. And for our business, the more people that touch it, it's more valuable. And I'm not sure they really understand what content is, even though...
That's a bold statement.
I don't think they really do understand what, for their audiences, what content is.
So what is content?
I just said, for my son, it's 2 dogs and doing things, and for me, it's it's Curb Your Enthusiasm and West Wing and other things. So, but I'm not sure they really realize the necessity of content and what it can do for an audience. I don't think they understand it yet, and they will. I think that's why the conversation needs to happen more and more, where we may have to make the trek up here and we have to come up here. And I think as influencers can move the needle for people in this room, the relationship will get closer and it will be more beneficial for both sides.
One of the topics that came up today is Google TV. several of the TV networks don't want to participate or have their content accessible through that platform.
Right. Well, eventually they're going to come see me, and one of my clients is going to say, you know something, screw it. Let's just go, right? Let's get an advertiser. Let's just, whoever's going to pay for it, figure it out, Ari, and let's put a piece of programming up. And guess what? If it's a good piece of programming, an audience is going to find it, it's going to get noticed, and it's going to get out there.
So you're going to circumvent the traditional methods.
You know, I have never cared what something's worth, what something costs. I only care what it's worth. And if it's worth more to Google TV and my client wants to do that than it is for FBC, I am going to Google TV. That is my job for my clients. And at a certain point, I think we have unbelievable clients with great things to say. And my job is find distribution for them to get those voices out there. And if it's Google TV, I want as many as possible. I just have to figure out how to monetize them for my client to make them and make a living, and that it's good for the distribution. And I always have a phrase, you know, I was in the negotiation for the Osbournes with MTV, and I found a little clause in their contract which permitted me to open up a negotiation. And I was getting screamed at by MTV, and the head of MTV at the time, who was a friend, Tom Freston, said, "This is not fair." And I said, "Tom, you know, fair is where we end up." And fair is where we end up. If it's better for Google TV than it is for Fox, fair is where we end up. And I'm okay with it.
You said that Silicon Valley, they need your content, but it also sounds like your clients need technology.
Yes.
How do you advise your clients, whether it's Lady Gaga or an actor?
Are you asking me for client advice right now?
No, I'm saying these folks want to know. I mean, I use a lot of technology, but how do you tell these clients to use Twitter, to use Facebook? Should they be broadcasting themselves?
I think the conversation that we have to figure out, or at least that we're addressing right now, is how to monetize our clients' social networks and how to monetize Twitter, Facebook, their .com, all their socialization, and Foursquare, whatever will transpire in their lives, and how that conversation is monetized. One is with OpenSky, another is with, we believe, with Grab.com. We are coming up with what we believe is answers for our clients to monetize. We're in the middle of a situation with Facebook with a movie client that we think we can maybe get a movie, a pretty well-known, I won't go into it until it's executed, a pretty well-known movie financed for about $10 million with Facebook.
Wait, with Facebook, meaning what?
Meaning how we take a movie, a TV show, and monetize it to make a movie with its fans on Facebook. How we do that, and if we can get that done, I'm not sure. We're going to try it. My job is to figure out, one of the jobs, and there's many, is to figure out how we monetize our clients, either personal or programming socialized world. I don't think it's been done right now. We are doing it, as I said, with a couple examples. And as we move into more distribution, moving that socialization to a monetization when you're going over the top on television, how we're performing this test, I don't have the answer right now. We have ideas about it. I don't think it's there yet, but that's what we're attempting to do.
How have you structured the company in terms of the investment bank, in terms of venture investments that WME makes to make the most of this situation, to monetize your clients?
So we have the traditional agency. We have a advertising agency, a digital agency inside Red. We have Red Peak. We have a direct marketing company. We just brought in Joe Ravitch and Jeff Sine from UBS and Goldman Sachs, and we raised $300 million. We're almost done with the final portion, which will be $500. There'll be a portion of it for VC, and that ecosystem hopefully gives us an understanding of what's going on. And there's offices in Silicon Valley, there's offices in Beijing, there's offices in California, and there's offices in New York on the merchant bank side. Same with the agency and same with the marketing group, and Nashville also for the agency. And our job there is to create the information and the ecosystem to make sure that we're understanding it a little bit ahead of the curve as it relates to what's going on here, also what's going on in entertainment, et cetera.
Why does it make sense for a talent agency to make venture investments?
Well, you'll ask the guys from Open Sky, you ask the guys from, hopefully in a very short order, if people here can speak to John from Open Sky, I think it's been very helpful for his brand, right? And we became partners because I think there's a huge opportunity for my clients, and I think it's good for his platform. We're in also, in cloud computing with a company called Otoy, where we've invested in a company out of Israel called Catch Media, which is a system by which you can identify the ecosystem and who all the players are that need to be paid out for content. We're making investments we think that are beneficial to our clients, that look to the future where the business is going, so that we're not behind the curve. And we have, we're going to be hiring in the venture area of the firm to make sure we're in tune with everything going on that can affect our business and our clients' business.
And so, are all of those investments driven by what's going to ultimately benefit the talent clients?
Yes.
And
hopefully.
And do you think that you have a totally different perspective on what's a valuable venture investment compared to some of these folks here?
Well, I'm just looking at it from my perspective about what's beneficial for the clients. And if we find a product that we think is, when it comes to WME's investment, when we think there's a product that is good for our clients, that we have done the analysis, then we will move to kind of do that. And we will move the whole agency on behalf of that product to kind of benefit it. As it relates to the investment, the merchant bank, they have their own set of analysis.
You've mentioned a pretty wide range of clients. You've got Hasbro. You work with some of these Web 2.0 companies. Who is your talent now? I mean, are you interested in representing?
You are.
Are you interested in representing the new web talent? I mean, you talk about the stuff on Google. Do you think there's value in representing someone who makes themselves on YouTube?
Hard. I mean, not sure yet.
Do you represent any of those people?
No, I don't. Do we as an agency? I'm probably going to get screamed at by one of my associates.
I think you might represent
probably,
yeah.
But
why is it so hard? Why not make money off of these people?
Because I don't know how much money there is to be made off of them right now. There's more money to be made off of Mark Wahlberg or the UFC or Aaron Sorkin or Larry David or Michael Moore right now, right? Not that I don't want to dismiss that, but there's still a great business in the traditional business.
So you
representing
think
newscasters.
There's more money in taking traditional entertainers' talent and bringing them to the web, and you don't think there's almost any money taking web talent?
I don't believe there is yet.
If people spend almost as much time online...
But look at the advertising dollars. It has not migrated yet in a significant way.
But billions of dollars go into web advertising.
It has not in comparison to what has happened in traditional. It has not migrated. Now, it's not like it's not coming, right?
But they're different ad dollars. I mean, there are search ad dollars, there are display ad dollars. It's not...
I don't have a search. I haven't created Google. Okay? I have a little agency that could, right? We're trying to put TV shows together, trying to put movies together, trying to put books together. That's what...
But so are you...
When I could create the next Google...
So your stars, your talent can't take advantage of the economics of the web?
No, they can. We have Lisa Kudrow right now doing a show on the web, right? So, yes, they can. And, yes, they have moved there. But I do believe, right, I'm not going to get pinned down. It's not black and white, okay? But we do have a very large traditional business. There are opportunities for the clients on the web. We are moving in that direction. I just pointed out a couple of them. Just because I represent it, don't have to attack me here. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Your job is to negotiate deals.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk in the business I cover about how deals have been negotiated, say, with Apple TV, and which shows are being sold on iTunes, and with Google TV. Do you think that those companies have mismanaged negotiations with Hollywood?
Well, I think if you went back on the music side, and you would have talked to the labels, I think they would not, if they knew now what they knew then, they would not have said 99 cents. And it did a really great job for Steve in that he moved a lot of product, but it didn't do a lot for the content people. Now, there's probably some argument that the music business was getting stolen. It created a platform to sell. You know, he did a really, he did a very good job for his company. I take my hat off to him, and he sold a lot of, you know, iPhones and. I agree. I have no problems about it. Listen, it's good for me. We're in the touring business. I'm absolutely fine with it. It's helped the touring business. So, but if he was asking me a specific question, I think that they would look back at this and they would say that that would not have been the pricing that they should have done. And he caught them at the right area, and I take my hat off to him.
And so going forward?
Going forward, I mean, the battles are just happening right now. You're seeing HBO and Warner Brothers and Netflix and that situation. I think, you know, the studios now and the networks own content, and there's going to be a lot of battles as it relates to distribution.
What does this landscape look like 5 years from now? Am I going to be able to watch, you know, like as Comcast announced today?
Hopefully I'm your agent still, and we do the following. We figure out how to monetize. In my opinion, there'll still be a place, because I think the brand exists for MSNBC, CNBC, a news platform. But there'll be another place for you to also engage your audience. My job in that conversation is figure out if there's a monetization formula in that conversation. And it might be just driving your audience back to where you are in a traditional sense, but it might be something else. I'm not sure what it is right now, but the job I have is to figure out who your audience is, how to keep them there, how to keep the conversation going, how to migrate the conversation into different areas that you want to have the conversation.
How worried are you about piracy?
I'm really worried. For all the smart people in this room, and for the government, that we haven't figured out how to stop piracy. Now, you know, in Europe, they have this 3-strike rule that they're trying to get passed, that this administration, and I had somebody in this administration, has not moved more aggressively on some policy as it relates to some piracy issues, I think is, I don't think it doesn't serve one of our big industries, one of our big exports in a proper manner.
I know we have to go to questions, but what do you think needs to be done? Do you think it needs to be handled by Silicon Valley?
I think there has to be, I don't think there's one solution to it. I think that I would expect it out of this part of the country and technology. I would expect it out of the government. And I would expect it out of the studios in the way they address the issue with media that stealing is not right. And I don't think the studios and the publishers and, you know, we put a book out, 6 months ago. It was on a hardcover. Within 75 minutes, or within 60 minutes, there was 75 free copies up on the web. That's an insane conversation. I was talking to my brother when he was in administration. I said, you're going to want to advance on the book. Guess what? Don't call me. Because if they're going out for free, and you can get an ebook for free, eventually, you know, you're not going to be getting advances. You're going to be in the same situation in the music business. And it's incumbent, I think, on all three parties, the government, this town, and our town, to get a message out that stealing is not right. And it is stealing.
Okay, and now we'll open up to questions.
Thank you. Take it easy.
I'd love to talk more about this last subject of conversation.
Didn't I see you up at Google?
O'Reilly. What?
Didn't I see you up at Google?
Yeah, I was leaning on Eric a little bit. So, television. If it's not available, then it will be pirated. We've seen this with music. We've seen it with books. You can take different lessons here. One of them is, oh my God, people are stealing our stuff. The other is, we're not making it available at a price that people are willing to pay. My experience as a publisher This is our biggest new channel, is selling content, even though there are free copies available. But I look at what's happening now, for example, with Netflix. People are watching what's available in Netflix streaming, and if it's not there, they're not watching it. And similarly,
If it's not there, excuse me?
Pardon me?
If it's not there?
If it's not there, they can't watch it,
Right.
or they're going to go find a free copy. And same thing we see with Times London going behind a paywall. They're dropping out of the conversation. The real question is really around your point about what is fair. What is the price
I don't think that's
that
the
people
question.
are going to end up at?
No, that's not the question. The question is it stealing or not stealing? Now, has anybody built the platform so that people can get it whenever they want at a price that they want, right? My answer to you is yes. I don't think we in Hollywood and the studios have done a very good job of creating platforms where people get it whenever they want it, 100%. They've defended traditional systems. You're 100% right there.
So, but what we keep hearing, though, is, we can't go there with Google TV. It was great to hear you say, yeah, we'll go there. But we see this defensive move
I agree with you.
from content industries
I
as
agree with
opposed
you.
to say, what the heck is the right price? What is the right price?
I agree with you. I think there has to be a pricing system. That's why we invested in a company called Catch Media. That is an an agreement on all content providers, right? They don't have it now because they've all built their walls around systems and they don't want anybody in.
Well,
I 100% agree with you.
If the market decides and we just get out there and start scrambling around.
But you can't get out there just because it's not there and steal it. I'm okay if you don't watch it. You just can't steal it. And don't tell me that stealing's good.
All I'll tell you is...
Because I've got 3 kids and I teach them that it's not good.
Yeah, I publish books DRM free. It's the fastest growing business that I have, is selling those same books. And I have my customers reporting to me all the time when they find pirated copies. If you trust your customers and you set up a fair price, they will pay you.
Really? So you're telling me everybody will pay you if it's a fair price. You got to stop drinking so much wine. That is crazy.
No. I'm not saying that everybody will pay you. I'm saying
that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. I want to ask you a question. How many free copies of music were sold? You think people, tens of millions, you think they're telling everybody, I stole that?
No, a lot of people rip their own music that they'd already paid for. But anyway, we're obviously not going to agree. You just couldn't charge them another time. But Apple's telling us that they're building a good business, and it is the price.
They're building a great business. Fair is where we're at. They're building a great business for Apple. I appreciate it. And let me just tell you something. Since the music business...
Fair is where you end up.
I agree with it. Since the music business did not build a platform, right, so that people could get it at a price, they stepped in. I take my hat off to
so
them.
film is doing the same thing.
I'm agreeing with you. Okay, what I'm not agreeing with you is that stealing is... You think it's that people are going to come tell you that they stole it. They're not. I'm not saying that we've done it right. I'm telling you the studios and the networks are doing it wrong. I agree with that. Okay?
Yeah. So I guess the question is just get out there more aggressively on the price.
But one thing I'm not telling you is somebody's going to call me when they steal and say, hey, I stole it. Here's $5. That's not happening.
No, I would agree with that.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, Ari, I'm curious if... This is not a follow-on to Tim's comment. If 3.5 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg came to you and said, I really need an agent. I've got this company, I want to start it, and I need representation. Could you have helped him? And is your model, which is based on content that draws audiences, in any way applicable to the Valley?
There would definitely, I think in less than, probably in, I think now, I think we have the tools inside with the guys in the merchant banks and certain people in the agency to definitely help him, one, in the finance area, and two, in building a business, and then contingent on his model if he needs influencers, depending on where he sees that, I think we probably could, yeah.
So
I'm not as angry as I come off
in years
to be.
forward, your agency model, which I would say at this point, if we were to use some sort of parallels. That's the venture community here in the Valley. The venture community are the mentors and
I hope.
the influencers.
I hope.
Do you have any simpatico with the venture business up here?
Listen, I've come up here a lot. I'll be coming up here in the middle of December. I'll be coming up here in the middle of January, probably coming up here in February. So we are starting the trek up. And, a bunch of people from the venture community in New York and the venture community here have come down. So it's beginning. And we have offices here, and we are going to be adding manpower here. So.
Hi there, how are you? Ari, thanks for coming. This is, it's a real
You got wine
pleasure.
in your hand, yeah.
I do. So, you've been talking a lot about content, and there's one particular piece of content that many of us know you from, and your reputation precedes you, sir.
I just showed it to you, the reputation.
Yes, and exactly, and I think there's some of us here that'd like to see that, but some more. But, I'm curious, what do you think about that show, that representation of you, and what do you think about Jeremy Piven's portrayal of you?
Well, I got more hair than he does. At the beginning, I didn't like it. Through a bunch of different circumstances, my brother, Ram, taking the job he took, and the merger, and the show, and it's been combustible. It's been good and bad. My wife thinks my ego's way too big now, so that's bad.
But Mrs. Ari is always very faithful to you, and you're always very faithful
Yes.
to Mrs. Ari. So it's a good
So it's been,
relationship.
all in all, I don't think I'd be up here without the television show. So it's, and I appreciate being up here. So it's actually been pretty great. Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Right now,
How did you let this kid in
the
here?
internet is used as a...
This kid's he didn't get any pass to get in here.
No, I'm not supposed to be here. Don't tell
No,
anybody
go on,
that.
I'm kidding.
Right now, the internet is used by Hollywood as a content provider, and I'm wondering when the content creators are going to be able to give back. When will a $100 million script start at the internet and make its way all the way to Warner Brothers? And how do you think that'll occur?
When will it go the reverse way,
Yeah,
where
when-
content comes from Hollywood, instead of going from Hollywood here, it comes from you guys, come back towards us? I don't know when that's going to happen. Do I think it's going to happen? Anything's possible. It's probably going to. I mean, I really don't have. I have no clue. It's not 100. It's not. That didn't start on the net, right? That story started on that, and it started in our place. So eventually, there's going to be a Sacha Baron Cohen, a Seth MacFarlane, a Larry David that comes out of here and then grabs his audience and explodes. There's been comedians that have done it, right? There's people that started businesses, music. Probably somebody in the book business will probably start here in the United States. I don't know what's going on in Asia and other places, but I'm assuming it's going to happen. I mean, but for sure, wherever it starts, talent does find a place for somebody to get to and find it and monetize it. It always happens. So if there is talent coming this way, it will be found in my town.
Thank you.
My name is Scott, and I've listened to a lot of the questions and answers that you've given so far tonight around content and people's willingness to pay for that. But what I'm interested in knowing is, like, so far what we've seen over the last decade or so is it's not so much the content, but how easily people can get to that content that people are willing to pay for. Like iTunes is a great example.
Yeah.
So, in your own experience, people are willing to experience a loss in fidelity and quality of that content for how easily I can get to that content.
Correct.
And what's
I mean,
your
listen.
perspective on that?
I wish the studios would create a system, and Netflix got created. They're figuring it out. I think we'll figure out whether that continues and the economics that they're going to have to pay in the future for content. But we've done a horrible job in Hollywood figuring out that mechanism. by which people...
Do you consider that to be Hollywood's job?
Yes, I do.
Or is
I do.
that Comcast's
No, I
job?
do, but that's Hollywood. That's their job. Because it's going to get it's going to get pulled. I mean, I come home Saturday, I wake up, my son's downstairs on his computer screen, he's watching a piece of programming. You know, it's happening. And if we're not going to create a market for and an economic model for that to be monetized in a better way than it has in my business, we're going to go the same way as the music business.
And I agree with you. I guess my question is, where does your job end as a content creator, and where does
my job
else's
is a representative. Okay, right now, the majority of the content is owned by the majors that people want to consume. It's the job of those people to figure out this conversation. And I think they're trying. I'm not saying that they're not. I think that there's barriers to that conversation. And they think they have their solutions in their lanes. Whether they can come together and do it, I'm hoping they do, because I do not want to go the way of the music business, right? Because I think that's detrimental to a great deal of quality programming being created. Now, there might be down the line benefit, which we can't see right now, but you know, I don't want to be Spain, where you have broadband and everything's getting ripped, and it's a very bad conversation for content creators.
Okay, so our last part of that question is, where does somebody else's job, like Comcast or the distribution channels or the people in this audience, the developers' job, to figure out how to get that content in consumers' hands?
Well, listen, right now, I think for the programming you want, right? Because I don't think you want the program my son was watching on YouTube, right? You're still going to have to go to the traditional route,
sure,
right? Eventually, and this is what I'm hoping, and this is what I'm betting on, my clients are going to want to go over the top. And when the economics with what they do in social, what we do for them in advertising, and your model come together, and I don't know when that happens, I think there's going to be a place where I can figure out where I have Larry David's next show, and I can go potentially, if the economics are feasible, a different route. That's what we're trying to build to make sure we're ready for that point in time. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi, Ari. You may have answered my question just then, but you talked about the two types of content, the content that your kids like with the dog and versus Seth MacFarlane.
I liked it too. I just didn't want anybody to know I liked that content.
Yeah, well, and our conception of what content is, and I think that's what the value of that content is determined by either what people are willing to pay or what the advertisers' perceived value of the viewers' wallets is. They're the two ways you can essentially value how you can maximize your output from the content. So what's limiting you from going direct, like besides the economics of how much money you're making in the traditional model?
I'm starting the process. We've got a couple situations where we are going direct. I don't want to discuss them because we haven't fulfilled them. So hopefully in a very short order, you'll see I'm going to see if I'm right, if I can go direct. And if I can...
Because at the moment, I'm from Australia, and I would love to pay for HBO, but I can't, so I steal it. And if you want my $5, I'll give you.
Well, you should talk to this guy. He doesn't think I deserve it, right?
Yeah. So, I don't know. Culturally, it's technically stealing. I don't think I totally agree with you, but
it is stealing.
But I would love to see you go on the line, put them on the line, and go direct and see how much money you can make out of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Final question over here.
Last question to Ari. So the whole thesis of this conference is control points. So
excuse me?
Control points. So going back in time, originally the studios and the networks screwed up, overplayed their hands, opened up the opportunity for cable. Cable overplays its hand, opens up the opportunity for Apple, for Google. The record labels overplay their hand on control, opens up the opportunity for Apple and others. How do you think about you overplaying your hand? You're now the control point. Do you overplay your hand? How do you think about it?
Well, I don't have the control yet. so I'm not in a position to overplay it. And I will probably at times, like most people, fuck it up. But I don't, the great thing, the control is actually, and I sit in a good situation, because the control is in the client's hands, because they can say I want to do it or I don't want to do it and how I want to do certain things. My job is just to advise, and once we get into a situation, kind of call in enough people that have some points of view on things. I don't think you have ultimate control in any of these situations anymore. I think there's multiple levels of control because distribution is going to have some control, even though there's going to be a lot of it. And ultimately, the audience, or whatever the audience is, has control because they can show up or not show up. So hopefully I don't overplay my hand. But I'll probably do it a couple times and screw things up, but I hope not.
We're going to have to leave it there.
Thanks, everybody. I hope I didn't.
Thank you.